Sounds like the audience is all ready, but we're having a slight technical difficulty. So we will be starting as soon as we get our systems up and running.
We are good to go, Mayor.
Great. Okay. I'm gonna, hold on for just a second. Okay, council, we're going to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Durango City Council regular meeting. It is February 6th and it is 5:30 p.m. May we start with a roll call, please?
Counselor Woodruff,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Buell,
Here.
Counselor Yazzie,
Here.
Mayor Youssef,
Here.
Counselor Bosman.
Present.
May we have the introduction of the translator, please?
Hi, everyone. Hope
Hi.
you can hear my audio okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Diego Pons here again with my colleague San Guzman on behalf of the Community Language Cooperative of CLC. Thank you for continuing having us and for creating the space for language justice so everyone can participate and engage in the language they each feel most comfortable in. We'll continue using simultaneous for English and Spanish. After I finish saying this, as usual, you'll see that globe icon that says interpretation is going to appear there in the bottom right-hand corner of your computer screen. We'll ask you to please select that globe icon and to please select your preferred language. And if you're joining the meeting on your cell phone or your tablet, please be on the lookout for the more button or the three dots button to select your preferred language this other way. And if you're not fully bilingual, we'll strongly encourage you to select your preferred language so you can use the interpretation in case anyone were to speak in the opposite language. And if you are bilingual, then just feel free to listen to everyone in the original language. So thank you so much for that. Buenas tardes a todos y todas. Yo soy Diego Pons. Estoy aquí hoy con mi colega Sam Guzmán de parte de la Cooperativa Comunitaria de la Justicia del Lenguaje, el CLC. Y gracias por tenernos hoy en su reunión y gracias por comprometerse otra vez a servir a la justicia del lenguaje para crear ese espacio donde todos puedan participar e involucrarse en el idioma de su corazón, el idioma en el que todos se sientan más cómodos. Vamos a utilizar ahora la interpretación simultánea aquí en Zoom para crear ese espacio en inglés y en español. Y ahora cuando yo termine de decir eso, se va a activar la interpretación y cuando está activada la interpretación, usted va a poder ver ese icono del globo de la Tierra que era interpretación. Ahí abajo en la derecha de su pantalla, por favor asegúrese de elegir ese icono globo de la Tierra y por favor seleccione su idioma preferido. Y si usted está asistiendo hoy a la reunión en su celular o en su tableta, por favor busque la opción que dice More, que quiere decir más, o tal vez el botón de 3 puntos para que pueda seleccionar su idioma preferido de esta otra manera. Si usted no es completamente bilingüe, le vamos a aconsejar que elija su idioma preferido para que pueda utilizar la interpretación cuando alguien está hablando en el otro idioma. Si usted sí es bilingüe, siéntase libre de escuchar a todos hoy en su idioma original. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Moving on to opening remarks by mayor and council. And we're going to start with the Durango High School update. Do we have representatives from Durango High School with us? Great. Thank you for joining us at the podium.
Hi, everybody. You can hear me. My name is Sienna Harvey, and I'm the junior class vice president at Durango High School. And I'm so happy to be here this evening to share with you guys what's been happening at DHS. So first off, the Durango High School Choir will be participating in Sing the World, an international choir festival hosted by World Strides, World Class Vacations, and the Walt Disney World Resort from April 26th to April 30th, 2024. 39 students and 6 chaperones will be participating. Together with a celebrity narrator, Sing the World uses the music of Disney to tell a musical story that promotes diversity and multiculturalism. DHS choir students have currently raised $25,000 out of their $30,000 goal. Next, on January 19th, 60+ students from 5 different schools competed in 10 competitions, ranging from cabinet making and carpentry to job interview and architecture. And qualifiers for this event will move on to the state level championship and hopefully move on to the national championship in Atlanta, Georgia this summer. The DHS Black Student Alliance, Native American Club, and Alianza Latinx took a group of 9 students and 3 adults to the annual Colorado Youth Diversity Conference on February 2nd and 3rd. The DHS Black Student Alliance will host its 3rd annual Black History Soul Food Dinner on Thursday, February 22nd at 6 in the DHS cafeteria. Tickets are available and the public is welcome to attend. In early November, 6 FFA students traveled to Indianapolis, Indiana for the 96th annual FFA convention and expo. FFA is excited for the year to come. They have so many exciting events planned, such as National FFA Week celebrating 96 years of FFA, their 2nd annual pie auction on March 2nd, and the opening of the new Impact Center. Knowledgeable hosted the regional meet on January 27th, and they won 1st place and qualified for state in mid-March. Student Council recently presented to school and district officials in an attempt to be recognized with the National Gold Council of Excellence Award. If earned, this will be our 12th time earning this distinction since 2010. Troop 1096 had an amazing year at ThesCon in early December. This year, junior Ava Allen was selected to perform in the opening number for the festival in front of an audience of nearly 4,000 people. Junior Taylor O'Neill received Best Set Design for her design of The Hobbit, which they produced earlier this year. They also took a 1-act performance of Clue to the festival and received perfect scores. Other superior scores were earned for a duo performance as well as costume construction. Troop 1096 also opens their musical Year in Town on February 29th. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the update. We appreciate it. Moving on to presentations and proclamations. These items are for presentation only. We'll have limited discussion here, but time for quick council comments or questions. And if councilors would like to bring these items up for further discussion and in-depth discussion, please bring it up in new business to see if there's council support. So we'll start with an update on Lake Nighthorse motorized versus non-motorized use with Sarah Humphrey.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Like we're ready. Sarah Humphrey, Parks and Recreation, here this evening to provide an update to City Council as requested for information on Lake Nighthorse motorized versus non-motorized usage. Just realized. Parks and Recreation has contracted Connected Realities and Principal Joy Lujan to facilitate 3 community engagement meetings. In 2010, the theme of the meeting was the economic impact study that aided the decision for the city to accept the responsibility of managing recreation at Lake Nighthorse. In February and early March of 2018, the city again contracted with Connected Realities and Ms. Lujan for community engagement. During this community engagement, users were mixed together based on their use preference. Common themes for the 2018 community engagement were multiple uses would be allowed, including motorized and non-motorized. There would be zoned recreation and non-motorized areas on the north end of the lake. Operations would include Mellow Mondays and Wakeless Wednesdays. The city would regulate the type of use with scheduled use to be inclusive. In February of 2021, the city once again contracted with Connected Realities and Ms. Lujan to lead another community engagement session. Once again, user groups were mixed together in Zoom breakout rooms as this was during the time of COVID. For discussion, common themes from 2021 were a desire for convenient parking, separate launches for motorized and non-motorized craft, and safety and education. Sorry, we kind of skipped on. In 2021, as a response to the community engagement, several changes were made. The wakeless use area was increased from 38% to 42% of the lake. The addition of purple in the graphic on the right. Separate paddlecraft launch area was created and wakeless hours were changed from Monday and Wednesday to Monday, Wednesday, Friday from open until 10 a.m. as multiple user groups desired the calm mornings before the westerly prevailing winds of the afternoons. This slide shows our current operating hours at Lake Night Horse. April 12th through May 14th, only non-motorized recreation is allowed to support the winter wildlife closure, with motorized recreation and inclusive scheduling beginning on May 15th. This slide highlights the inclusive schedule. Please note that on quiet and wakeless times, motorized craft can launch, but must not make wake or play loud music, etc. during the quiet hours. And on all days, paddlecraft and non-motorized are welcome during all operational hours. This is the 2023 total user group breakdown. 33% are stand-up paddle, kayak, canoe, or row. 32% are swimming or using the Widbit inflatable obstacle course. 23% are walk, run, or dog walk, with 6% being motorized and 6% being fishing by foot. Any questions?
Questions from council?
Sure.
Thank you for that report. I'm curious as to the wake. Is there any way to expand the wakeless time on the lake? And maybe divide the paddle boards from the middle of the lake where they get stranded?
And provide
The paddle boards what?
You know, the people who paddle on their wakeboards or their canoes, how they get out into the middle of the lake and they get stranded. You know, so if they can just keep the wake paddle boards, or whatever you call it, away from the motorboats and expand the wakeless time nearer the shore. Is there any possibility of that?
you have, if we can go back to the map graphic, please. So the map graphic, kind of next to the purple, you can see that there's a no wake zone that's delineated by buoys. And then on the north end of the lake as well is in the hash marked out. Those are all no wake areas that are buoy protected. So it does not go through the middle of the lake, if that's what you're asking. But there is a delineated non-motorized zone.
Could we go back to the schedule, please, of the current schedule, which says Monday, Wednesday, Friday?
Sure.
I just want to get some clarification.
Uh,
So can we define wakeless? Does that mean motorized use is allowed as long as they aren't going above a certain speed?
Yes, so motorized is allowed to launch during this time, just not generate a wake. So low idle.
So
Sure.
currently there's no non-motorized. I'm using a double negative. Currently there's not really a time where a boat is not allowed on the lake. A motorized boat is not allowed on the lake,
No, a motorized boat can be on the wake, but they can't be.
but they're allowed on the
wake.
lake.
Can you go to the green-ish slide? Sorry. So
Right.
as I did state before, the only truly non-motorized time is during that kind of end of the winter wildlife closure. So that's going to be from April 12th through May 14th. Was the only truly non-motorized time currently.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
Do you know what other lakes around Durango are do you have that information? Can't remember, non-motorized?
Who, may I step and talk to Tom real quick?
Yeah, of course.
slides.
Oh, you're good.
Additional slides.
You're-
The main part of the presentation. So this is the regional lake management specific to Wakeless. This
So all those are wakeless lakes around us.
Well, so we have Farmington Lake is no wake, Pastoris is no wake, Lemon is non-motorized. I don't know if everyone in the audience can read it. Haviland's no wake, Summit's no wake, Totten's non-motorized. Pewitt, I'm probably saying that wrong, is no wake. McPhee is open to motorized. And I missed one, Jackson Gulch is also no wake.
And then just to clarify, because I was listening, but just to make sure, you've done 3 engagement sessions with users and
Yes.
and I remember the ones, because I attended some of the ones over COVID on Zoom, but I just wanted to make sure there was 2 before then as well.
So 2018 was prior to us opening the lake.
Yeah.
That was the year that we opened the lake. That was the first one. 2021 was sort of what we called an adaptive management response to things that the community brought to our attention as far as operations management and things that they would like to see discussed. Miss Lujan we've contracted with her every time. She does a really good job, and I'm probably not standing where you can see me, sorry. She does a really good job with bringing user groups together. So the breakdown that was on the first or second slide kind of shows what the sort of demographic was, if you would, of user groups. And then they all kind of get together and have these discussions together.
Awesome.
So it wasn't just like you were only in the wakeless group or you were only in the motorized or something like that. They were blended.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Other questions, comments from council? Great. Thank you very much.
absolutely.
With that, we'll move on to an update on our Lake Night Horse Pipeline with Allison Baker.
Evening, I'm Allison Baker. I'm the Director of Public Works for City of Durango and wanted to provide just a quick catch-up summary on Lake Night Horse Pipeline. We haven't talked about it in several months, and the question came up of what is the current status? So wanted to refresh everybody's memory before we go back into starting to plan for CIP going forward next year. So. All right, so the city of Durango's current focus in bringing forward a discussion of city storage allocation in Lake Night Horse is as a factor to increase resiliency, particularly in the event of an emergency. The risks driving the city's interest in increasing resiliency are aridification and potential for reduction of stream flow, wildfire damage, watersheds where the city has exercised historic water rights to supply existing city potable water needs, potential for upstream environmental impacts such as that which occurred with Gold King mine spill, contaminating stream flow for some period of time, and 4, the factors of uncertainty in aging infrastructure. The city continues to work with many entities to attempt to reduce these risks, but sees the greatest potential mitigation for all stakeholders as providing access to adequate storage to limit the impact of an emergency such as one described. Last year, the city hired a consultant, Plummer Engineering, in 2023, working with their partners Dewberry and Keystone to begin an analysis and look at alternatives that would be possible futures that we could work with the tribes to consider as alternatives for the Lake Night Horse pipeline. And we began those discussions, began information review to determine the possibilities after the Ridges Basin Plant Addition Plan was canceled, with the city's understanding that neither additional plant capacity nor water rights are currently needed based on the city's current projected growth. We have held 2 project tribal consultation meetings, we being the city, with the tribes, as well as several city and tribal joint meetings to discuss matters. We understand that the Southern Ute Indian Tribe and Ute Mountain Ute Indian Tribe have voiced their opposition to the Lake Night Horse Pipeline project, which includes the following concerns. The project is viewed as Durango's need for more water to handle our growth, concern the disturbance of historically and culturally significant tribal lands, and item the need to ensure the project equally benefits all partners. These were items that were brought up during the discussions. So the current status of Lake Night Horse shareholders discussions extend in many different directions, but the portion that the city is involved with at this point, tribal and city councils continue to meet quarterly, discussing multiple topics, including the possibilities for how a Lake Night Horse pipeline may provide value to the tribes while mitigating city risk. City staff are working with tribal legal staff, David Smith, to create opportunities for tribal and city staff to meet and review current data that could help identify options for possibilities for equitable development. Also, city staff continues to maintain relationships with our Archuleta La Plata Operations and Maintenance Group to support provision of interactive stewardship for areas of our responsibility. In addition, the Federal Bureau of Reclamation remains a partner in the outlet facility area. Are there any questions that I can answer for council?
Is that it? Conclusion?
That's the conclusion.
Okay, questions from
Unless there-
council?
I thank you for the presentation.
Certainly.
Where are we with the design and the cost estimates? When will that come to council? Because this is just the very high level first discussions. Yeah, so we spent probably what, 600,000 or so on the design of this pipeline already?
The analysis of multiple alternatives has been completed. It was submitted to the city for review in December of 2023. We have not completed that review and returned it to Plummer as finalized. The intent of the RFP when we went out to bid was to bring the plan set to a 30% status of construction design. At that point in a construction manager for risk project, you would go out for an additional bid to finish the project.
So how much money have we spent? And can you remind me how much money is in the budget for this year for the design and engineering and study work?
I can get those numbers for you. I don't have them right now.
I think the total cost was 2 million. Was that right? It went down from 2.5 million
Yes.
to 2 million and it was split over 3 years. So when do you, yeah,
Approximately.
when do you
yes.
expect it to come to council? When the review of the first 30% has been done by the city? Does it come to council then or only when it's 100% complete?
I would anticipate that the CIP proposal process would be the next logical step if the city decided to proceed working with the tribal councils to move forward in some way, shape, or form. I'd be speculating if
I'm just trying to understand when do we see some of the results of the study?
I think it depends on what the results are.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Allison. I was curious, have you made any attempt to reach out to the tribes that have a little opposition to this project? And if you do, I'd like to have an update on that.
All right. I can send you copies of those emails. And the most recent conversation was between Thanksgiving and Christmas when we decided that it would be after January that we would come back together as a group and have some conversation that got staff level members together to start talking about specifics, cultural resources, biology, those kind of details.
All righty, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Allison.
Sure. Thank you.
Great. Moving on to city manager updates, Visit Durango Board of Directors update.
Good evening, Mayor Youssef and councilors. And Jose, thank you so much for giving us a spot here. My name is Jenny Roberts. I'm the Rooms Division Manager at the Strader. For the past 8 years, I've been the General Manager at the Hampton. And I represent the lodging sector for Visit Durango. And I'm the current chair for Visit Durango. So you'll be seeing a lot of me over the next year. Yay. I could talk for several hours on Visit Durango. I won't do that to you. I've just got a couple minutes. We wanted to take this time, maybe once a month, to just sort of update you on what we're doing, all the great things that we've accomplished. I'll start out with a very timely and exciting piece of news. Earlier today, the Durango Backcountry hosted the 2024 Natural Selection Tour Duels. And I'm sure a lot of you have read about that in the paper. This competition, which was the brainchild of snowboarder Travis Rice, was held in Purgatory Resort's backcountry and featured a head-to-head competition between two of the world's top snowboarders, USA Niles Mindrich, I probably just slaughtered that, and France's Victor Davy. Visit Durango has been working for over a year on securing this event and has contributed a major sponsorship to win this event. This is a boost for the sustainable tourism marketing that Visit Durango works so hard on. The marketing, the PR, and the economic benefits to Durango will be immense, and the event will garner a media coverage equivalent to about 1.6 million. So very exciting there. This event is in line with the regenerative and sustainable tourism, because it's focused on promoting the off-peak season. And we've been talking about that. I know I've worked with some of you in the past. I mean, this has been a conversation we've had for years now with Visit Durango. And so it's really nice to actually see that coming to fruition. Let's see, I also wanted to share that the Destination Management Department of Visit Durango had won a Green Destinations Top 100 story for their work on community engagement. That was in 2023. And then we recently just found out that we were one of 6 award finalists for the top prize for the entire world. And the team at Visit Durango is doing groundbreaking work when it comes to destination sustainability. And it's an honor that we're being recognized on a global stage for that strategy. I went to a conference last week and Visit Durango was actually talked about for their sustainable tourism. So very exciting there. We did attend 2 trade shows in January and worked on promoting the sustainable tourism marketing domestically. The American Bus Association, we met with about 50 tour bus operators and we're encouraging off-peak season travel. We also attended the Travel Adventure Show in Denver to encourage sustainability-minded consumers to plan their next vacation to Durango. And our next local event marketing campaign coming up is the Durango Restaurant Week from April 12th to April 21st. And this year, the program will be accessible to visitors and residents on all budgets, as the restaurants will be offering special meal pairings from $15 to $25 to $50. So a little bit different there than what it's been in the past. And that is it. I tried to keep it under 3 minutes. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Questions, council? No, thank you for the update.
Thank you. You'll see us once a month.
Thank you. Moving on to trash and recycling update.
Yes, Mayor and Council, Allison Baker, our Public Works Director, has a brief just trash and recycling update on just some of the things we've heard in the community about what's happening in glass recycling, and just want to do a quick presentation to assure the community that glass is being recycled.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I'm Allison Baker, Public Works Director for City of Durango. I wanted to provide a little bit of a update on our trash recycle division update, in particular, the recycle program. We have what's called single stream recycle, which combines multiple different materials into bales that are then hauled to a facility where they are processed and further reused for future activities. So the program in Durango was started in 2012, and it currently provides collection service to 4,850 residential customers and over 500 commercial customer accounts. Materials are sorted into cardboard, batteries, electronics, glass, and the rest is put into a group that is called single stream that is baled. It's then hauled and processed. The historic transport cost of an average truckload is $1,350 from Durango to Albuquerque. Albuquerque has a material recycling facility that was owned by Friedman Recycling from 2015 to 2022. And we were obtaining an average processing cost of $60 per ton at a fixed rate. Friedman was bought by Waste Connections, also known as Barco, in February of 2022, which has led to a current change in the processing of the material pricing, where material is divided into multiple components, different types of plastic material, tin, aluminum, various kinds of recyclable materials. And those are priced by an average market value throughout the country. And then we are billed for the transport of that material at that rate. Currently, it's running $155 per ton for us, which is a significant increase from our previous $60 per ton. And a load shipped to Albuquerque is approximately $3,400 as opposed to a previous rate of $1,350. So while we are set up as an enterprise fund, the recycle facility and operation, and can support this based on the citizens, ratepayers' contributions to the system over the years, there are fewer opportunities for recycle than there once were. And we wanted to keep this awareness in front of council that it appears to be a narrowing funnel. The next step for us is relining the baler, which is a process of coating the interior of the compression equipment that puts the bales into a square rectangular shape that can then be stacked on a truck and hauled to Albuquerque effectively. And the plunger pump will be replaced at the same time. We're scheduled to put the recycled material back out to bid in 2024. And there's a possibility that there may be alternatives other than the two that I've mentioned that will offer bids at that time. This is, I thought, a useful picture of the scope of the kind of recycling that is being done in 2023. Glass recycling program started in 1990. Currently collect glass at the Durango Recycle Center 24/7, 365 days a year for residential customers at no cost. There's a free glass drop-off location. Many locations throughout the city have had to be removed due to contamination issues, people putting unclean glass bottles into containers that we cannot then process. The transport and process collected glass goes to Rocky Mountain Bottle Company in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, where it is repurposed back into glass bottles. Durango glass collection is put on hold if backhaul transport is not available and storage areas are full. In other words, basically we close down the gate until we can find a reasonable rate to have the material hauled out to provide room to store new material. We received $35 per ton from Rocky Mountain Bottle Company for glass material. Average, the transportation costs approximately $1,300 per load. And a glass load is approximately 30 tons when sent out for recycling. Glass typically adds 33% to the diversion weight of what we do not send to the landfill every year. So we believe it's a good investment in reducing the landfill component. Are there any questions I can answer for council?
Thank you so much for the update. Questions from council?
Yeah, just a clarification.
Yes.
So the last sentence you said, can you repeat in different words? I don't really understand what you were trying to say with the 33% to diversion rate. Well, unless I understood it correctly, which is whatever goes to the landfill, if you take the glass out, you save 33%.
It would be 33% less and that's the diversion weight. And we like increasing the diversion weight because that means less goes to the landfill. We're trying to reduce what goes to the landfill. So we increase what goes elsewhere to be rehandled and reprocessed.
That's a lot more than I would have expected.
It's surprisingly heavy. It adds up.
Thank you so much for the update. It's great
Thank
for
you.
us to all just be aware of what's happening with our recycling. It's really important. I'm sorry to hear about the increase in costs. But thank you for that update for the community. Very much. All right, with that, we'll move on to council reports, committee board and liaison reports. Who would like to start?
I can start. All right,
Okay.
I'll start. I went to the Colorado Association of Ski Towns Conference in Crested Butte on January 25th. Some super interesting topics they talked about. They were the first town in Colorado to go full electrification. In 2023, they voted on it, which was basically pushing designers and builders to do new things. So any new construction has to be full electrical, and then any renovations, they do have to meet the new electrification codes. Yeah, super interesting and kind of cool progress they're making there. They talked about beyond housing and livability in mountain towns. They're significantly smaller than Durango, but some great topics about challenges of childcare, transit. We deal with the same issues here. And then talking about the livability index in housing, health, transportation, environment. so on and so forth. How their income has gone up 4%, but the housing costs have gone up 13% in the last 5 years, which was interesting to kind of talk about and focus on. Let's see what else. Oh, they just redid their strategic plan too, which I thought was great since we're going into our strategic initiative, and they are doing like a compass with their like 4 main it's authentic community, connected community, bold community, and accountable community, and kind of relating everything to those. And so it was interesting to kind of talk about. They do a 5-year plan. And I think, we're talking about going to a 5-year. They had a big presentation on base area development, which doesn't really apply to the city of Durango here because our ski areas in the county, but it was a great public-private partnership that I think Park City is the one that presented. And so just kind of looking at those public-private partnerships with the city and how it can help some developments. They went to a 100% electric fleet. So their dump trucks, light duty trucks, police, marshal cars, they're doing their vintage. They have like a couple vintage trucks that they're retrofitting, and their tractors are all electric. It was crazy. They brought it all up. Anyways, it was hard to get staff buy-in, but they did it. Lots revenue sources, lots of grants, that sort of thing. There was a legislative update there. So the housing bill that was very controversial last year is going to be coming back, but it's going to be only focused on like Front Range cities and Grand Junction maybe. We're not going to have to fall in line with some of the regulations, which is great. And that was like the big pushback, is that those rules and regulations the governor was trying to impose on the whole state doesn't really apply to smaller towns like Durango in some ways. So that's good. And there's a lot of other legislative stuff that they're talking about and keeping an eye on. Those were the big things.
Thanks so much.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, since the last meeting, the council meeting on January 16th, I attended the Mayor's Youth Advisory Commission at Durango High School, and it was for about an hour meeting and with some lunch there. And basically the Durango High School students, they're planning how to learn how to plan. And so it's really was interesting. And I think they're doing a good job. So they're learning leadership roles and how to delegate. Okay, then after that, I had the library meeting with Luke. We just reviewed some of the general points about the library, like the Friends of the Library really help out with extras at the library and how well we're doing it with people coming to the library, the amount of books we're getting. So that was all good. And then on January 23rd, we had the La Plata County Board of Commissions quarterly meeting. And we had lively discussions there, concerning issues that impact both the city and the county. And so I was impressed by the presentations, and it was lively. And then that evening I attended the Engage Durango meeting at the library, and it was well received. And I'm really impressed with the fact that Engage Durango forums are taking off and people are actually coming in and asking questions of the departments and the counselors who are there. And then January 30th and 31st, both Dave and I had the Community Development Commission interviews, and we interviewed 21 applicants for the committee that we're forming. And it was all very positive because people still have a genuine interest in helping provide advisory capacity for the city of Durango. And that's all.
Thank you so much. Other counselors.
Yeah, I'll go next. I was able to go to the Creative Economy Commission meeting on the 30th. We had a pretty lengthy conversation about how we document and showcase the work that the lodgers tax recipients get to show off where their money is going and show the community like where that money is moving towards. And it was really good to really have that conversation around how we can showcase some of those great creative minds that are helping contribute to the economy. So that was really good. And then we talked about the 2024 budget, funding being a little over $500,000 from the arts and culture lodgers tax. So again, we get to really make some significant impact to really prop up our arts community within Durango. We also had a conversation around the Animas River Trail art, and the call to artists is going to go out Thursday, the 8th, and go through March 29th. So going to have some pretty good conversations around what that could potentially look like. As Councilor Yazzie mentioned, we, along with Scott Shine from the Community Development Department, had those commission interviews, and 21 interviews over 2 days was considerable. It was a lot of input, a lot of good conversations. One thing that I was really stoked about to see so many people excited about participating in some of these conversations, and depends on how you look at it. Fortunately, unfortunately, it was a really tight group with a lot of really good qualified people that were in the mix. And unfortunately, there wasn't enough room for all of them, but it was, a tight pick for a couple of folks. But I'm really excited to have that group lead the Community Development Commission moving forward. So yeah, that's all I got.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for that update, Dave. I had a meeting on January 25th with Region 9. It was election of officers, etc. And they go over their loan portfolio. And they also cover topics like grant programs, enterprise zones, etc. And that was followed by the Southwest Colorado Council of Governments meeting, which is being downsized, has been downsized, and working with Region 9. And then, of course, we had Snowdown, and I think that deserves a little comment because it's such an important event that helps businesses during the quiet times. So it was fun.
Excellent.
Crazy, but fun.
Wonderful. Thank you. I had the coordinating committee meeting with Jose on Monday this week. This group has met cordially with the city, La Plata County, 9R, Fort Lewis College, and Pueblo Community College. It's really a good time to connect. Especially, it was very useful, especially during COVID, when we were able to coordinate and discuss policies together. However, at this past meeting, it was brought up that maybe we stand down on these meetings at the current time. It was agreed by the group that they've been productive and good opportunities to connect, but each of us have other opportunities where we connect on a regular basis with the other organizations individually. So we felt that this meeting was duplicative and not necessary anymore. So I just wanted to let council know that we're just standing down for the time being, and when we need them going forward, we'll just continue to hold the meetings. All right, and with that, I'm just going to take a 3-minute recess before we have public comment, and we will convene after that. Thank you. We're going to reconvene the meeting. Be back on. We're moving on to public comment on agenda item number 7. However, before we start agenda item number 7, I would just like to notice and recognize that we have some audience members with signs that clearly want to communicate with council tonight. I would like to just reiterate for all of you that we are here tonight to conduct city business for the city of Durango. And items during public participation in item number 7, that those items of public discussion need to be related to items on the agenda. There will be opportunities to communicate later on in the agenda. I'm also seeing signs, and I'm just asking for you guys to please be respectful of the fact that we're trying to conduct business here. And so we would appreciate for you guys to try to not be distractive of the business that we're trying to conduct here in Durango. I recognize that you might have other issues that you want to talk about globally. And those are items that, have to do with free speech, but we have limited free speech opportunities here in our meeting. So we'll be trying to manage that pretty carefully. I just wanted to say that before we get started. So we'll start now on public comment number 7. This is for comment for items that are on the agenda this evening. We will go ahead and start with that. We're going to go ahead and start with Lisa Bloomquist, please. This is 8, 9, and 11. You're on item 10. Okay. We have one from Dave Linden who would like to speak on Durango Crossings. Yes, please. If you'd come to the podium, we're limiting our discussions to 3 minutes. If you'd please address your comments to council, and we do not respond from the dais, but
Durango Crossings is 10 as well. So we'll have a public.
oh, we will be having public hearings.
So item 10 is.
So you can speak during that time if you prefer. Okay, thank you. All right, so I don't think we have anyone who wants to comment for items 8, 9, and 11. All right. Is there any virtual comments? Thank you.
No, Mayor, no one has raised their hand.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to a reading of the consent agenda, please, Dana.
Item 8.1, approval of meeting minutes. 8.1.1, approval of minutes, January 16th, 2024, City Council regular meeting. 8.2, the final reading of ordinances. 8.2.1, final reading of ordinance O-2024-0001 for the 2900 block of West Second Avenue right-of-way abandonment. 8.2.2, final reading of ordinance O-2024-0002 for land use and development code text amendments regarding detached condominiums and updated flood insurance study. 8.3, adoption of resolution by consent. 8.3.1, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an intergovernmental agreement with La Plata County regarding funding for the annexation of County Roads 250 and 251. There are no further items on the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. Is there any counselor that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda?
I would like to remove item 8.2.2.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 8.2.2?
So moved.
Roll call, please, Dana.
Counselor Bosman's,
Yes.
Mayor Youssef,
Yes.
Counselor Yazzie,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Buell,
Yes.
and Counselor Woodruff.
Yes.
Thank you. I make a motion to approve item 8.2.2, final reading of ordinance O-24-24-002.
I'll second.
Council discussion.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can still ask a question to staff. Is that possible or is that be?
Yes, sounds like it's possible because here comes Scott.
Hey, Scott, thanks for showing up again and providing your insights. This was presented, I think, 2 weeks ago during that meeting. And your colleague mentioned that the trigger for the new zoning class, I can't remember the name, I don't have it in front of me, but the manufactured homes on the let's go back one step. There was a section that says you can have 4 units on a homeowners association property in that specific zone class. And they can all be detached and they can be manufactured homes. And she mentioned that it was triggered, or there is an opportunity, a project that isn't going to probably be part of this, or one of the reasons why this amendment took place. I wanted to ask you what the project is.
The project with 4 units per acre or per lot?
She mentioned there was a project, or at least one, I remember one, but I didn't ask, what is the project? What is the project that is being discussed by the city?
Was the impetus for these code changes? Is that, I'm sorry.
So she mentioned there's a project specifically why that would classify for this
Okay.
land use and development code change.
Yeah.
And my question is, what project is this?
I understand. We're very careful when we do advance code amendments. They don't just apply to one project. They will then now apply to any eligible project going forward. What we've been doing is we've been working with Twin Buttes and the Animas High School site on a new model for homeownership that involves a land trust. And this will enable that type of ownership model. So we looked down, we said, this could apply in this case. Do we want to make it more widely available? And decided that we did. So we're including it in the code.
And would a project like that not classify as a multiplex or as a multifamily or as a variance to an existing class?
Ooh, we're digging into code now, Councilor Bosman's.
Well,
It might
the
be
reason
better
I
to
ask is-
have a separate conversation because I don't know if this will impact what your question is. I think we can advance this code amendment and maybe have a separate conversation on the project.
Well, I voted against it last time because I think, we make it too complex. And if there's one project only that applies,
Right.
and that's what triggered all these changes, then I think why not apply for a variance or a multiplex or,
Yeah.
and so this
Yeah.
is a little bit where I'm going because there's no zoning to which this applies. And we're speaking of, if we change it, that you can have basically 2 pre-manufactured units placed on foundations and have a whole different, how do I say that? Characteristic of that property and its neighbors. Because it's almost like mobile homes, or tiny homes, except it's on a foundation. So I don't like the flexibility all of a sudden that we create. Maybe it's useful, and that would be a different discussion.
Yeah.
But the way it came to us 2 weeks ago, I didn't get the sense.
I
So-
think there are also other controls that would prevent a development from happening that could have those impacts that you're talking about. So I think we're looking at this one change now. There's the whole rest of the code would also govern a development proposal. So I think we're okay. We're protected from incompatible development that you may be concerned about. I would also say when we look at variances, one of the things we look at is not setting a precedent for future applications. And so that's where we weigh, is this unique enough to do a variance, or do we need to make a code adjustment that then changes sort of the approach to development? So I'm happy to have a more detailed conversation. I do think if I understand what you're concerned about, I think we still have adequate protections to prevent that from encroaching in existing neighborhoods or other things, but.
Yeah, I appreciate your
Great.
clarification.
Thank you. Other council comments?
Yeah, I guess my understanding of it was, we've had this conversation around having a variance versus having something in the code, so you're not just having to completely have to apply for a variance. And so I understand if there's a potential need for this, then it makes sense to codify some of that language. And maybe I'm wrong, Scott, but I think my understanding of that, because I'm looking at the amended language currently. So it happens in Article 7-3 definitions, where the single family detached condominium dwelling unit is its own individual word with its own individual meaning, whereas a modular home right underneath it is also in red, but it's its own separate definition. So when I read condominium, I don't read manufactured or modular, because it's not the same definition. So maybe it's just a point of clarification that the way I read it is that condominium could not be modular or manufactured. So maybe that's just my own interpretation of that language. But yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, Scott, but I'm just trying to further the point.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's a good distinction, Counselor Woodruff. It's not speaking to construction type at all. It's just the ownership model, how the unit is created and then transferred among parties. So it doesn't, it's stick built modular. It doesn't speak to that construction type at all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Other counselor comments? All right, may we have a roll call, please, Dana?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to land use and development, 10.1. May we have a reading of 10.1, please, Dana?
Durango Crossings Partnership, 1480 to 1540 Florida Road. A public hearing for the annexation, initial zoning, and conceptual plan development for the Durango Crossings Partnership.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Discussion regarding the public hearing.
Roll call vote on the, open the
Roll, okay, roll call vote on the public hearing, please.
Counselor Yazzie?
Yes.
Mayor Youssef?
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff?
Yes.
Counselor Bosman's?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Buell?
Yes.
All right, the public hearing is open. I'm going to start with the staff presentation with Dan Armentano. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, councilors. Looks like presentation is up. Thank you, Tom. This is a public hearing for the Durango Crossings Partnership Conceptual Plan Development, Annexation, and Initial Zoning, and I'll start out with an overview. So this is a public-private partnership. It will develop market rate and workforce housing on both city-owned and privately owned land. And the key aspect of this proposal, given that it is a partnership, is that a minimum of 50% of the residential units that are developed will be deed restricted workforce housing. So a crucial aspect of this project. The partnership is a manifestation of city council directives, the staff to consider developments of city-owned land specifically for workforce housing. We initiated a RFQ process in 2022 that led to the selection of Durango Crossings Partners, which is led by Ken Trujillo with Reynolds Ash and Associates as a local partner as well. This hearing tonight, the conceptual PD and the annexation, is a critical milestone for the project. So we're happy to be here, and this will be a multi-phase project, so it will come back to you all again 3 more times, and I'll talk about that when I get to phasing. Here's a context map showing the area of the development and the different parcels that are included. It's about 8.3 acres total. There's 16 total parcels, of which 11, about 6 acres, are city-owned. Those are the red parcels in that image. The partner, Mr. Trujillo, is bringing 3 additional parcels to the development, as well as 2 more that are privately owned that he's hoping to acquire, which brings, again, that total acreage up to a little over 8. The city acquired the red parcels back about 2.5 decades ago for the purpose of a road connection up to Jenkins Ranch Road. That has obviously never been built, so those parcels have sat vacant and led us to the point where we considered using them for workforce housing. With this development, we'll both get that first leg of that road connection to retain the possibility for that future connection, as well as the workforce units and the market rate units. So to dive into some of the details here, this is the conceptual layout. We think of a conceptual layout as about 30% complete, so this is certainly subject to change. But what we have tonight so far is 149 residential units. Of those, 60 are apartments, so it'd be rental units, 89 condominiums and townhomes, so those would be ownership opportunities. There'll be an 80-foot right-of-way dedication moving through the development. That's the road that you see here on the screen. 2 access points. The main access will be converting that existing intersection at Florida Road and County Road 250 to a 4-way, with this new road being the southern leg. And then a secondary 1-way entrance access only for basically to ensure that the traffic impacts are lessened. And that would be into this area here. These are the apartment buildings. There is a mixed use component with this. That's this building here. It could be up to 4 stories with commercial units on the first and second floor, and then residential units above. Based on the complexity and just the number of units involved, this project will be moving forward in 3 phases. We've negotiated with the developer, talked about how to appropriately phase the project, and this is what we've landed on. So phase 1 will be this area outlined in blue. So that's about 32 condominium units here at the southwest corner of the new intersection, likely 1 or maybe 2 buildings. And then hillside townhome units along the new road. The design and construction of the road will be included in phase 1 as well. Phase 2 is the apartment buildings, 3 apartment buildings, about 20 units each, and that new access off of Fleury Road that I just described. And then phase 3 will be the mixed use building with 31 residential condominiums on the 3rd and 4th floors, and then those commercial uses below. So project considerations, obviously, like I said, this is a conceptual review. So there's a number of items that are subject to change. Staff's review, I think, is focused on trying to balance the number of units that we can get with preserving the character. And I think our conditions reflect that. But some of the key items include traffic and road improvements. Obviously, that new 4-way intersection on a major road, Florida Road, is a significant change. The applicant has proposed a left turn lane for westbound traffic to turn into the development. And then, as I mentioned, the 80-foot right of way for the new street. This is an area that is encumbered by some steeper slopes. The areas closest to Florida Road are flatter, and then farther from Florida Road, they do ramp up and get pretty steep. So staff has suggested that the homes need to all be sited outside areas of 30% slope to protect those steeper areas. Context is pretty important for this corridor. We're recommending that phases 1 and 2 be limited to 3 stories in height. And then phase 3 will consider a 4-story option if it meets our design requirements, and that would be reviewed as part of the phase 3 submittal. We're talking about potentially stepping that 4th story back from Florida Road to kind of reduce the impact on the throughway there. As far as amenities, they are proposing a private park as well as a co-working space within the mixed-use building for folks that work remotely. The annexation on paper is relatively simple. The area is 38% contiguous, which meets the 1/6 contiguous requirement that the state requires. We do have petitions from all property owners. Most of those are the city, and then of course the applicant, Mr. Trujillo, and those 2 private property owners. The annexation agreement will be a little bit more complex. It will serve as the initial plan development agreement. We'll have addendums that will be recorded for each phase. And that agreement will need to describe phasing in detail. It'll describe the public improvements that are required for this project, as well as the parameters of when the city-owned land will transfer to the developer with reversion clauses, so that if something happens, the project doesn't move forward, that land does go back to city ownership. It'll also spell out the workforce housing requirements in some detail. There will be a minimum of 50% per phase, workforce units at 70 to 120% of AMI. And then finally, it'll state the city's intent to continue to pursue additional financial resources to put towards the project in the hopes of potentially securing more than 50% of the units as workforce. Those would be grants. We did look at a grant. Submit a letter of intent for a grant from the state. I think you all had a resolution that came before you that unfortunately didn't pan out. We'll continue to look at more grant opportunities with the state. And then as well as an urban renewal designation potentially, that's contingent upon the annexation. So once the annexation is complete, then we can look at a conditions assessment for urban renewal and potentially leverage tax increment for offsetting some of the infrastructure costs. Here's a kind of a process outline and timeline for the proposal. You all may remember back in June, you reviewed future land use map amendments for this area, and those were completed. Here we are tonight, reviewing the conceptual PD and the annexation. Upon completion of the annexation, as I just mentioned, we'll initiate the urban renewal conditions assessment. Seeking additional funding sources will be ongoing. And if this is approved tonight, the conceptual plan, we anticipate that the phase 1 preliminary plan review may come in potentially as early as March or April, depending on the applicant's ability to get the documents together. That's usually about a 4 or 6 month review. It will come back before both the Community Development Commission and City Council for final approval before going to a final development plan review and potentially beginning construction as early as fall of this year. That's optimistic, but it's certainly achievable. Phases 2 and 3 will go through the same process. So review by the Community Development Commission and then back before you all for approval. Strong alignment for this project with our adopted plans. Strategic plans, AEO objectives broadly support mixed income workforce housing and public-private partnerships. Certainly we're committing city resources in this case. The comp plan, as I just mentioned, it meets the future land use map standards based on the action you all took back in June. And it also has a goal to recommend increasing workforce housing through partnerships. And then the housing plan, a little bit different, does encourage additional density along the Florida Road corridor. Planning Commission reviewed this on December 4th. Commissioners unanimously recommended approval on a 3-0 vote. There was some public comment that came in prior to that meeting and then during the meeting as well. I believe there was 2 more written comments that came to you all prior to tonight. The comments have broadly focused on concerns related to density, certainly traffic on Florida Road, some comments on wildfire concern as well. So well, Planning Commission and staff are both recommending approval with conditions. These conditions here on the screen are kind of a summary of what's included. There's some more nuts and bolts conditions as well. But this would establish the design density at just under 24 units, 24 units per acre. It would limit structure heights to 3 stories for phases 1 and 2. It would require alignment with the hillside regulations in the LUDC. Would require that new intersection to include a left turn lane for westbound traffic. And then also include the description of those requirements that I just went over in the annexation agreement. And finally, requirement that the plans and the agreements need to reflect the conditions in the original notice of award that was granted in 2022. Just briefly on the hearing procedures, we don't have an applicant presentation. They are here tonight to answer any questions as needed. After I'm done with the slide, you all can take public comment, and then there will be 2 motions for the annexation ordinance and then for the resolution to approve the conceptual development plan. And then staff is available to take questions once that's complete.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a developer presentation?
We do not. No, they're available for questions. Mr. Trujillo, Ken Trujillo, I believe is online as well as Tracy Rouse.
Excellent. Thank you. Then we're going to go ahead and move on right now to comments from the audience. And I do have 2 people that I have signed up for item number 10. We'll start with Lisa Bloomquist. And if you could please direct your comments to council, we'll limit comments to 3 minutes. We don't respond to from the dais. Obviously no hate speech, and you have to stay on topic, please.
Okay, good evening. My name is Lisa Bloomquist. I am a city resident. I would like to speak in favor of the Durango Crossings proposal. I am the executive director for Homes Fund, and I evaluate on a pretty regular basis how much affordable, what the gap is between the area wages and the housing that is available. And recently did an analysis that showed that in La Plata County, in order for a household that is 80% of area median income, in order for them to buy a home that cost 80% of the median price, there is a $200,000 gap, actually a $222,000 gap. That just illustrates the need for the, what is it, about 44 units of affordable housing. I apologize. The staff will tell you exactly how many units of affordable housing, but that 50% of the units are going to be affordable is extraordinary. And I'd like to commend the staff and the developer for this public-private partnership for working together to make this possible. So yes, badly needed and in support of it. And I'm going to grab my stuff and take off before I find out the answer, but thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much for your comments. Dave Linden. If you could state your name and whether you're a resident of the city or not.
Dave Linden, and I'm a resident of the city within 1,000 feet of this specific project. And I would like to commend the developer and the city for trying to build something with a big affordable component. My biggest concerns are density, that we're turning what's now sort of semi-rural suburban into urbanization. Fourth floor is also urbanization of the corridor. Right now, all the 4-story buildings in town that I'm aware of are on Main or on 2nd Avenue. So again, that's just out of proportion to where projects cited. Third thing is, again, the wildland fire, because every hillside behind this project, where I am, in almost everywhere around the edges of Durango, we have a really high wildfire danger. And I think as we push density, that wildfire danger becomes a lot more of an issue. And then the last thing is the roads. You know, Florida is somewhat functional, but as we push density, I think this whole city will start to be like Santa Fe, where it takes forever to get 2 miles. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have anyone who would like to comment virtually?
Yes, Mayor, we have Rachel that has raised their hand.
Okay.
Okay, is it working?
It is working.
Hi there all, my name. Oh,
If you could state your name and if you're a resident of the city or not, and please stay on topic to this agenda item.
great, thank you. Yeah, my name is Rachel Landis and I live within city limits. Like Dave, I'm up in this neighborhood, a little bit farther up. And like Dave and the speaker before, just want to commend the council and the developer and the planning department for working really hard to advance affordable housing and specifically workforce housing in the area, and also the childcare facility. Those are both huge needs. And so very much in support of this project, and just had a couple areas to comment on. One is just encouraging the city to think a little bit differently on how it's engaging the constituents around this area. It's not a kind of grid style part of the city. And so there's only a few of the folks who'd be impacted that live within 300 feet. And so all the folks upstream, I don't think are aware of this. So for future consideration. The other is love that there's the affordable considerations. If there's any possibility, just encouraging you all to actually drop the AMI range to 60%. And you all would have better data on this than I do, but kind of thinking about earned income and who these units might serve and attract. And thinking, I work in the nonprofit sector and know that median wages there, average wages are in the 40 to 50,000 range. And then that kind of aligns with FLC staff and some of our teachers as well. And again, if at all possible, when you look at serving the needs of the community, if there's any way to increase the number of deed restricted units for sale, I know that's seems like it's a particular gap in a way to kind of capture and retain some of those workforce members we seem to be losing right now. Support of the staff's recommendation to keep buildings at 3 stories in phase 1 and phase 2, and might encourage that for phase 3. And then, as Dave mentioned, I am concerned actually about the traffic. And I'm a bike commuter. I have to turn left onto Florida, and it's currently from the light all the way to the turn. It's back to back to back nonstop in the mornings and in the afternoons. And I wasn't convinced when I read the plan that there's an actual plan for how to mitigate that. It kind of sounded like, well, it's a problem now. This is just going to keep it a problem, but we're not going to address it. And so wondering if there's anything we can do around that, specifically as it relates to the construction period. That's a little bit that makes me a little nervous. So thanks so much for, again, the great work on this and moving it forward and for your consideration.
Excellent. Thank you. And I believe we don't have any other commenter virtually, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. I'm going to ask council to wait to have your comments and or questions heard until we have a motion on the floor. So with that, Dana, may we have a reading of 10.1.2, please?
An ordinance approving the Durango Crossings Partnership annexation and declaring an effective date for 1480 through 1540 Florida Road.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the ordinance annexing the Durango Crossings Partnership Edition with the initial zoning of planned development with the findings and conditions as outlined in the staff report and discussed at this public hearing.
Second.
Council discussion.
I have a few questions, if, could I ask?
Yes,
Thank you.
please.
Well, I just, before I start, I just wanted to make a comment. I met with Lisa Bloomquist when I was running for city council 3 years ago now, I think it was. And I remember asking her what the difference was for, that gap for affordable housing. And it was $100,000 3 years ago. And so the fact she just said it was 222,000, then in 3 years, it's gone up 122,000. That's like such a crazy jump in the last few years that we are experiencing here in Durango. So that's just one comment. Question for you. The apartments that are on North College and Florida, how many stories are those? There's do you know what I'm talking about? 13.
Yeah, the ones, I guess, kind of across from Jabo's there,
Yeah.
the newer ones. I believe those are 3.
3, okay. And then there's another apartment complex kind of catty corner that are like 3 as well.
Yeah, I think so. Pretty much everything along the Florida Road corridor right now is
It's
2 or 3 stories.
And then you're proposing that the first, like the entryway levels are 3 stories, no more than 3 stories, right?
Yeah, so phases 1 and 2 will, based on the conditions, will be 3 stories.
Okay.
The only exception, 4-story option would be for the mixed use building, which is on the corner anchoring the development. And the feedback we provided to the developer is, we'll look at this at the preliminary stage. When it comes in, it's going to need to be, we'll scrutinize the design. It's going to need to fit with the corridor in that likely the 4-story mass will be stepped back from the road. So if you are familiar with what it looks like out there, there's kind of a slope that goes up. So if that mass is stepped back from the road, it will, to an extent, potentially mirror, the ramping up of the slope. That's obviously subjective, but we'll look at it at phase 3, and you all will have the decision to look at that design and approve or deny as well. So, yeah.
And I think I understood it from your presentation. You said 50% of the residents were going to be deed restricted in some capacity. And then I think it said 50% in each phase. So it's not like all the apartments and none of the townhomes, right? It's like there's 58 units in phase 1 and or yeah, half of those will be deed restricted, and phase two, the apartments or whatever, half will be, is that correct?
Yeah, so I guess to start broadly, overall, the whole development, minimum 50% deed restricted. Within that 50%, we've also said, I guess separately, and this I guess is new information too. So a minimum of half the units have to be for sale. A minimum of half, well, so a minimum of half of those also need to be deed restricted. So in this case, it's more than half are for sale. And we've also said by phase, we want half of the units to be deed restricted. So we're ensuring as the project gets built out, we're not ever below that 50% margin.
Right.
We could be above it. And then if,
I also don't want to get into the situation where it's only apartment rentals are the deed restricted and none of the
Yeah.
home ownership, right?
that won't
And
be the
so we
case.
want to see a variety of housing types, and whether it's rentals or for sale, that are that affordable housing. What made us choose 70%? Like why?
The AMI range?
Yeah.
So that aligns with fair share.
Yeah.
And then, also, and I think Eva could speak to this as well, but, we do have some developments that have moved forward that are kind of below the 70% range. The Best
Best
Western
Western.
project is a great example. So this is capturing kind of the next step up. So more the workforce. And I think it hits that gap as opposed to specifically targeting more of the truly affordable subsidized range.
Perfect. And then I have a minute left, so just one more question. Why 4 stories? Did they say what that necessary 4-story was going to be? Just more units, more,
Yeah.
like that's all they're trying to do is just more.
Yeah, I think, again, we're trying to balance number of units with context. Obviously, the more units we get with that 50% ratio, the more affordable units we get, workforce units, to stick with that word. So yes, adding that 4-story is just another floor of residential units condominiums.
I definitely think it's super important that I know we have transit that goes out to buy bread right there, but we, making sure that it is a super congested area, and it is hard, coming down from that Edgemont area. And this is just going to add to it. And so that the city is doing our job to make sure that the traffic flow is great, and that, there's transit access to, limit congestion as much as we can. So just gonna throw that out there. It's super important as we're adding all these units in there that we do our job too. So great. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate all of your work going into it. Councilor Buell answered or asked all the questions that I was going to ask for the first part. And I'm kind of trying to address some of the potential density issues around transportation and that much volume of cars. It looks like currently there exists 2 transit stops. One at the Ptarmigan Center, which is across from the Florida Road, and then a second one, probably 300-400 feet to the west, I guess, near the intersection of College and Florida. Do we anticipate maybe re-looking at some of those transit stops to really focus on maybe a transit stop maybe at that place to really incentivize people to get right on that trolley and head into town?
That's a conversation we have not had yet. I think, as you mentioned, there's 2 nearby. The one at Ptarmigan is about 400 feet, so the other one is a little bit farther down. Certainly, we would love for these residents to use transit, mitigate the traffic impacts. We haven't specifically talked about that yet with multimodal, but I think we'd be happy to have that conversation.
Yeah, maybe certain to, at least entertain the conversation to see if there's a better way to facilitate that. So I just want to clarify a couple of things. So the city owned land, which is worth about $1.4 million currently. If we go through this process and the developer falls through, I read in the packet that we will retain back the ownership of that land. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we will be putting a reversion clause in the annexation agreement that covers us in case something happens, so that that land will come back to the city's ownership if, something happens, the development doesn't move forward.
I didn't want to not have that out there. And then it says there were some title issues. Do we anticipate that being clarified over the coming months?
The city had title report put together for our properties, and there was I'm not an expert on title work, so don't ask me to explain it in detail, but there was a minor discrepancy on one of the parcels that has since been resolved. We've been working with the title company, going back and forth. There was a question over a death certificate, and in the end, they kind of said, okay, we'll give you your title guarantee based on their comfort with that issue being resolved. So, yeah.
Awesome. And it looks like there was a potential grant funding of $4 million that was not awarded. Are we trying to pursue other grant opportunities for this project?
Yeah, we certainly will. The Stronger Communities Grant we submitted a letter of interest, and unfortunately, we're not selected to proceed. It sounded like there was a massive amount of applications that were received by the state for that grant money, and they had a limited supply. This project, I think, just based on where it was in the process, didn't quite align with their criteria compared to the numerous other projects they received. So we will continue to look at grants from the state as this moves forward.
Excellent. Last one I have. So the original intention was to create a Jenkins Ranch Road extension with this property. It looks like this road is going to be going through that property. What can you tell me? Are there other barriers to extend Jenkins Ranch Road beyond what this plot of land would provide?
Yeah, there's two really big ones. The first one is we don't have all the right of way yet. So we don't have any land beyond where that cul-de-sac is on the site plan. There's two parcels that we don't have the right of way. And then beyond those two parcels, I believe the right of way is actually platted. But the other main really significant hurdle is just the slope. It's really steep. I would imagine be an incredibly expensive road to build. I'm not an expert on that, but that's my understanding. So it would be a challenging connection to make.
Okay, thank you.
Other councilors?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I am inclined to support this project because it adds much needed housing. And it also includes progress to the road to Jenkins Ranch Road, as Councillor Dave was mentioning, because I think there is an issue with the evacuation from that whole neighborhood because there's only one way in and out. So, but I do have concerns. So the workforce housing is 70% to 120% of the AMI, and that the equivalent is about $57,000 to $98,000. Is that correct? That number? Ballpark?
It's always in flux because year over year, those numbers change. But I think broadly that may align with that range. Yeah.
Okay, well, I asked that because I assume it's, first of all, it's a large range, and I assume that any owner will aim for the top of the range. So that would be 98,000 for affordable workforce housing. Now, another question I have is, what would it cost the city or our taxpayers, directly or indirectly? I know that the land in this document is assessed to be a value at 1.5 million. Is there any other payments or waived fees in summary, because I'm on the clock?
Yeah, we will waive fees for the affordable units, the development fees that are standard. We're not collecting development or application fees for the project. Yeah, that's not very much money.
So
but
is that going to be $1 million or in that order of magnitude?
I don't know the exact number without sitting down with a calculator and punching them in. So I would imagine not, maybe not. I don't want to guess.
Well, it would be good to know how much it's going to cost our taxpayers.
Yep.
If you mentioned grants, what would they be used for?
Presumably the infrastructure cost. Obviously, building that road is a substantial cost to the developer. So any grants we would be focusing on the public infrastructure that would be owned by the city.
Okay, so that was my next question. Will the developer take care of the changes to the road, the traffic light, access road, everything? Or is
Yes.
it something that we're expected to pay?
No, that's the developer's responsibility to build the road, make the changes to the intersection.
Okay,
all
so
the
any
public
grant money
improvements.
is basically money that goes to us, but we would end up giving it to the developer.
Well, it's a partnership, so, we're working together to try to achieve this outcome. Yes, grant money would be used for the construction of the road.
Okay, when you say partnership, we are not going to end up owning the buildings, are we? Or
No, the workforce will own
well,
at least
exactly.
half
So-
of the, well,
So we're giving all
Remember-
that away anyway, yeah? So we don't have any assets afterwards, except for a road that's constructed.
yeah, and again, that was the original purpose for that land acquisition.
No,
Was
no,
to
and I
construct
support
that
the
road.
idea. I'm actually think it's not a bad opportunity. I think it's a little bit overvalued, the workforce based on the price of the AMI as well as the cost that we end up paying, either directly or through land or grants. And the next to last one I have, in 1 minute and 40 seconds. I'm not a big fan of creating another URA. If there's no need for us to finance, if the developer pays for the roads and all the infrastructure, we don't need to pay for the infrastructure, obviously. And I hope that everybody understands that financing of the URA is by diverting sales and property taxes. It is not free or state or federal money. It is money that otherwise would go to our city and county and school and the 9R. And as you can see with the other URAs, the top two expenses paid by those diverted taxes are either the consultant to pay for managing the URA structure, or grants to individual owners or businesses to upgrade their property, which can be painting their facades, solar panels, or landscaping. And that I do not believe is a good or equitable use of taxpayers' money. So the question on the URA is that already in process? Is that going to be approved with this aspect of the, or is that a whole different decision by council or the URA board?
Yes, separate decision by the URA board. So that is not on the table tonight to approve the URA designation. The URA designation will require a conditions assessment.
Yep.
So that will be something that would be considered by the URA board. And that process will happen at a later date. So this whole annexation conceptual development plan, that's it for tonight. And then, if that annexation is approved, then it becomes eligible for a URA consideration.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much for the.
Other counselors? Go ahead.
I move to approve the ordinance annexing the Durango Crossing Partnership. Oh, we do, okay.
Do you have any comments?
No,
Okay.
vote.
I don't have any comments either, so we'll just go for a roll call, please.
Okay.
Counselor Clausen.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Buell.
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And Dana, may we now have a reading of 10.1.3, please?
A resolution approving the conceptual plan development for the Durango Crossings Partnership, 1480 to 1543.
I'll move to approve a resolution accepting the proposed Durango Crossings Partnership conceptual plan development with the findings and conditions as outlined in the staff report and discussed at this public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
You
Council,
changed it? Okay.
council discussion. Seeing none, will we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Buell.
Yes.
Mayor Youssef.
Yes.
Counselor Clausen.
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff.
Yes.
Counselor Young.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, with that, we will move on to item number 13, public comment on non-agenda related items. This is public comment for items not considered on our agenda this evening. And I thank you, Dana. She was going to get me the list. If you could, when you come to the podium, if you could please, after I call your name, identify the topic that you'll be bringing forward when you come to the podium. Please limit discussion to 3 minutes. Let us know if you're a resident of the city and direct your comments to city council. We will not respond from the dais. Please be aware that you will be out of order and we will immediately cut you off if you do not stay on topic. And if there is any mention of hate speech, we have had a difficult meeting at our last meeting that we're trying not to recreate. So if you could just work with us on that, we would sure appreciate it. And we're going to start with Sweetie Marbury, please.
Good evening. My name is Sweetie Marbury, and yes, I am a Durango resident. I'm here to address a few issues that I'm concerned about. Last week, I attended the Financial Advisory Board meeting, and I support the funding for the 14th Street reopening. This would eliminate the 15th left turn lane and also the roundabout. And by opening up the 14th Street, it will save time, it will save money, and it will eliminate stress for residents that are coming down Florida Road. You just are looking at a new project that's going to have 149 more units on Florida Road. And so I heard the proposal from Devin last week about funding of the design for this, and I thoroughly support it. The second point I'm concerned about is focus groups. In my opinion, no meeting should exclude residents. I was told that I could not attend the focus group on the 15th and 3rd. Meetings should exclude residents with executive sessions. I understand that. There's been one public meeting on this project, and that was in May. I question this process because I believe that the more information that everyone has and shares the information, that communication will strengthen the public's knowledge. And so I have been attending many meetings at the city level since 1987. And I have never felt that I was shut out of any meeting. So I'm asking you to restructure your focus meetings in the future, that I would like to go and listen. I don't have to participate, but I would like to learn and listen. And I think that's really important to everyone that is concerned about city projects. My last issue is the 205 sales tax reauthorization. I support the city council in the new project of combining the police station, our leaky shoebox is what I call it, and bringing everyone to 9R. But we need to talk about it. And you need to be asking other residents, well, what is your vision in the reauthorization of the sales tax? I'm suggesting that the next public engagement meeting, that be the focus. Because if you're talking about the 205 sales tax on a November ballot, we need lots of information as to why we need to pass a bond and sell City Hall, sell our leaky shoebox, create a good place for our city employees and our police department. And thank you so much.
Thank you. The next person on the list, I'm sorry, I can't really read the writing. It's Jeff and it's W something Wagon? Is there a Jeff that signed up to speak? I don't see one. Okay. Then we'll move on to Karen Pontius, please. If you could state your name, if you're a resident of the city, and what item you'll be speaking to.
All right. Good evening. My name is Karen Pontius. I live in Durango City. I speak tonight to ask our city councilors to pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. At least 48 cities have passed symbolic resolutions calling for a halt to Israel's bombardment, with 6 others passing resolutions advocating more broadly for peace. At least 20 have passed resolutions condemning the attack, Hamas's attack on Israel. Chicago's city council just approved a resolution calling for a permanent ceasefire. It's the latest U.S. city to approve such a non-binding resolution, following many others in recent months. Chicago Alderman Daniel Espada said, "Do I believe that the words we speak today, how we vote today, influences directly international policy? I do not. I don't have those illusions. But we vote with hope. We vote with solidarity. We vote to help people feel heard in a world of silence." So the core values of these resolutions is about specific understandings. There's no military solution to eliminating Hamas, and the safe return of hostages runs directly counter to the type of military campaign being waged by Netanyahu's government. According to a recent poll, 61% of likely voters in America support a ceasefire. So this is not a fringe position, not an extreme position. It's a baseline position supported by Americans. Let's see. 1:30. Okay, I'm good. A Detroit council member said, "This reflects frustration, particularly by younger officials and people of color with our current administration," talking nationally. She said, "We want leadership that is willing to listen to us. Politicians should listen to young people, invest in diversity, invest in people that have values aligned with them, and listen to their constituents." So as a constituent of the city of Durango, where our beautiful Snowdown event just drew huge crowds that advocated for peace and love, I feel the council should align with those values and pass a symbolic resolution supporting a ceasefire. So here's the map of all the cities. Here's Durango. So there's nobody else in the middle, and I think Durango could be right in there and leading the way. Thank you.
Thank you. You can hold comments, please. Thank you. Next commenter is Laura Weiser. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Got it right.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Laura Weiser and I live in the Valley, so I'm not a city resident. Thank you for the parks presentation tonight. I found it very informative. Just wanted to pass along a couple of comments. I would urge the city to increase the wakeless hours. In the 4 years we have been here, which I think that's all the time the lake has been open, the hours for wakeless have been reduced over that period of time. The percentage of motorized versus non-motorized, the non-motorized are a greater percentage than the motorized. And for those that aren't involved with paddleboarding, canoeing, and more importantly, rowing a single shell, wakes, water coming over the edge is problematic. And yes, there is wakeless area within the lake, even when it's not wakeless time. But to credit Jim Cross, a well-known Durango resident, he's never seen a buoy stop a wake. So there are always ways when there are motorboats on the lake. So I think the percentage of use should be considered when the allocation for amount of time for wakeless is determined. And as far as the other lakes that came up tonight, as far as other wakeless lakes, I would just offer that many of those are not very close. They're much smaller. And as Durango taxpayers, Lake Nighthorse is available to all of us. And I just feel like the split in usage should reflect the actual usage of the water. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Trevor Bird. And if you could let us know what item you'll be speaking to tonight, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Trevor Bird. I am a resident of the county, but a small business owner here in the city of Durango that gainfully employs over 25 people year round. And during our season, that number, if you include the Four Corners Motorcycle Rally, jumps up to about 100 people. I would like to speak to the proposed ordinance amending Chapter 18 of the Parks and Recreation, Article 3. When we moved here and bought the dealership, we had no desire. I'll be honest, I didn't even know what the Four Corners Motorcycle Rally was. In 2017, the rally had gone basically back to rock bottom. And so we purchased the intellectual property rights, and with my wife, our business partner, and the other people in the community, we wanted to approach the rally from a different perspective, a perspective that it was a community-friendly event. It was a family-friendly event. I kind of had one guiding principle. If I couldn't take my wife and my daughter to a rally event, it wasn't going to be part of the rally. As the event planner, we have to start these strategic planning sometimes 18 to 24 months in advance. We have to get contracts, in this case with the La Plata County Fairgrounds. We have to work with our insurance carriers for general liability, liquor liability, and we've been really lucky to work very closely with the Durango Police Department, the La Plata County Sheriff's Office, the State Highway Patrol, and some private protection services. My concern with this ordinance is, as an event planner, we are leaving the decisions for events to be able to move forward or not to a very small number of people. And I don't think as event planners, when I was listening to Visit Durango speak earlier, they spoke about sustainable tourism, off-peak season events. These are all boxes that the rally checks, and my concern is with how far in advance we have to plan for events like this, that a amendment to this ordinance would really prevent events like this from moving forward. And if that's the intent, then I understand. But my request is, one, that this doesn't move forward past tonight. And if it does, that you give the other event planners in the community more time than just 2 weeks to prepare for public comment. I was very shocked when I learned this morning that even the county manager was not aware of this until today. So I think a lot of us are very surprised with how quickly this has come about. And so if you are going to continue to move forward, I would ask at a minimum that you allow more time before you open it up to public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Cobb.
Hi, my name is Rick Cobb and I live in Three Springs, and I'm continuing my quest to find the right combination of venues like City Council or Engage Durango meetings or digital platforms that will take the place of what I used to get from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board around capital improvement projects, the prioritization of those, and trying to ensure that my neighborhood of Three Springs is adequately represented in the allocation of sales tax funds for assets in Three Springs. So don't really know where to go to get status on certain things. I did hear in the study meeting today that it was brought up as to what's going on with Smart 160. It sounds like there's still some issues with easements that need to be resolved. I'm not sure that it's going to get constructed this year, hopefully at least started, but it's going to be a multi-year project. So that's one. Where do I find information on those projects? Number two is, where are those prioritized these days? It sounds like May might be when the Financial Advisory Board is going to have, maybe in their standard meeting or maybe an additional meeting, review of those projects. I hope that's enough time to digest $400 million worth of projects and which ones are going to get done in any given year. Related to that, I've seen some progress on the Three Springs development agreement that's being renegotiated. I'm hoping that part of that can interface with a project that was on the books and then got moved. That's the pickleball courts and dog park that was hopefully going to be a cornerstone of the Durango Community Park at Three Springs, which was the original concept. Perhaps that can be revisited in conjunction with the County Road 235, Village 2, et cetera, because yeah, we're building pickleball courts. It's not enough yet. It's not enough. And lastly, I'll echo Sweetie's comment about, needing to have more information on the renewal of the 2005 sales tax, because a lot of these things will be moot if we don't renew that. So what's the right combination of funding capital projects like the emergency services and being able to fund things like ongoing recreational parks, open space, and trails? So want to hear more about where those are. And unfortunately, I'm coming to ask questions. I know this isn't the forum to get answers, but I would like to get some answers in some form at some point. Gilda, your office hours are tomorrow, so I'll start with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Looks like we have one individual who'd like to comment virtually. Can we go ahead and start that?
Yes, Mayor. Linda Barnes, I'm going to bring her.
Thank you.
Am I on?
Yes, Linda, if you could state your name and
Yeah.
whether you're a resident of the city or not, and what item you will be speaking to tonight.
Yes, thank you. My name is Linda Barnes, and I do live in Durango. And I'm going to speak to the need for emergency shelter for our unhoused members of the community during the inclement weather that we've been experiencing this winter. I'm going to use a symbolic number here to ground for us the urgency of providing a safe place to sleep for those in Durango. There are 296 days left before Thanksgiving of 2024. And that's 296 days before another winter sets in. For this winter in Durango, there has been no inside shelter for our homeless neighbors on an emergency basis, regardless of the outside temperature and the conditions. I'm here to speak to the desperate need for emergency shelter in Durango. In this beautiful small city, there is a population suffering from the lack of emergency shelter. This has been a case for a long time and continues to this day. It's easy to dismiss the urgency. After all, 296 days is a long way off. But to prepare for winter of 2024, the process to provide emergency shelter needs to start now. Homelessness in our community is not unique. It is a reflection of what is happening across the state and the nation and the world in the face of disequity and climate change. We only see the tip of the iceberg here. Colorado people in the state are stepping up to provide services for those in need, and it requires the cooperation between the public and private sectors. In Denver, there's a plethora of both emergency and bridge housing for the ever-increasing homeless population. Denver is highlighted nationally for its resolve and recently agreed that in addition to trying to get everyone inside, those who remain outside in bad and cold weather will not have their camp sites swept, as is the practice in some communities. Some of these facilities are open year-round, and some are open only during the winter. As an example, in Grand Junction, there is Homeward Bound in Colorado Springs, Springs Rescue Mission in Delta, the Abraham Connection in Salida, the Chaffee County Hospitality Group in Glenwood Springs, Feed My Sheep in Cortez, the Bridge Salter, and in Canyon City, the Kaya House. In each of these towns, there's a collaborative effort between the volunteer organizations and the county and city officials. There is a caring community in Durango that would respond to the ever-present issue. However, the response requires the support of both city and county officials. Caring for our unhoused neighbors is a collaborative effort requiring the support and the political will of all.
Your time is up. If you could please conclude.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to item number 14, introduction of ordinances. And the following is a request for a public hearing at an upcoming meeting. We'll have limited discussion on this item. Just a motion from council to see if there is support to place it on a future agenda item. Dana, may we please have a reading of item 14.1?
A request for public hearing to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 18 Parks and Recreation of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Durango and declaring an effective date.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Mayor, I can just give a brief explanation. This was an ordinance that I was asked to develop after discussions with several staff members. There was a comment by the public on it tonight. There may be some misinterpretation of it because it is at the very beginning of the process. The intent of the ordinance is just to help us coordinate with the county on events that occur at county facilities within the city. I think the comment was there was an attempt to cancel an event, and that certainly was never an instruction that I was given, but it's simply to help us coordinate with the county better on events that are taking place at county facilities within city limits.
Thank you.
And it
for
will
that
be,
clarification.
again, it's got a month until it could possibly pass because it has to be introduced, then a first reading with hearing, comment, and then the consent agenda second reading. So it's a month away from passing at the soonest.
I've read it over like 4 times. I'm like trying to find where I was like, okay, where is it? And it's just clear, there's just a couple word changes in there about municipal facilities and
Right.
just like cleaning some.
The magic language is within city limits.
Yeah, okay.
Because county events at the fairgrounds or other facilities that are within the city limits affect city residents, but there's no process now where the city even becomes aware that those events are taking place unless someone at the county picks up the phone and calls us.
But we're not saying that they're not having events. It's not in our control.
It is not a prohibitive thing. It's just, if it was to pass after discussion with you guys, if someone was going to do an event, it would require a permit from the county because it's their facility and from the city because it's within city limits.
Which is a collaborative in government, we should want collaboration.
There's a lot of discussion for introduction,
Yeah.
but there's 2 more meetings about it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Excellent.
I have a couple of comments on this. So this, the agenda item, the agenda changed. So the change took place yesterday. Initially, it was on the consent agenda for public hearing. And now it is directly an introduction of an ordinance and a request for public hearing. What changed this?
It was a mistake for it to have been placed where you saw it yesterday. We caught the mistake and changed it.
Okay, well, I also read the ordinance and without going into detail, but I believe the changes are interesting, but also there's a lot of things we can do to make the language more clear, give event organizers more certainty and clarity on what the process is and what they have to comply with. And I think if we're gonna address this ordinance and go through this process, why don't we do it thoroughly instead of just minor changes that do not really improve the document that well, in my opinion. So I'm not in favor of even facilitating this. I think my position is that I would like to see this ordinance, if we want to revisit that ordinance, to make it a good, better ordinance and for all the aspects of it. Because I'll give you an example. If I would be at Buckley Park and want to do an event, the ordinance as it's written or modified says I need it can be denied if it has an adverse impact to a regular user. If
I
I
think-
walk that Buckley Park every day at 2 o'clock and you want to do an event there, in theory, someone in the city can say, I'm not going to grant you.
So the goal here, just to reiterate, just for fairness to the public.
Yeah.
What we want to have here is very limited discussion on this topic, just a conversation of whether we want to have this conversation at a future agenda meeting where you can bring up those topics in public, where people have time to know that you might be speaking to that topic and they can be aware, because they might want to hear what you have to say. Whereas tonight, they might not even know that we're going to have this agenda topic. So I just want to limit.
Yeah, and where I'm going with this, we have an ordinance with changes, and I don't like the ordinance with changes. I don't even like the ordinance in the first place. So to me, I don't even want to waste everybody's time on council and our community to present and have a public hearing on a document that I don't even support.
Then you would vote no.
Exactly.
Okay. So thank you for your comments. Any other comments from council? Go ahead.
I would also vote no because my first reaction is this is kind of knee jerk. Why don't we just have a conversation with the county, what our concerns are over the fairground use? That's what I would say before we go ahead and start manipulating the ordinance to meet certain people's preferences.
Well, if Mark, I think that Mark said it well, our city attorney, about the fact that what this is doing is allowing the city the opportunity when there are events taking place in the city, it's our opportunity to work and collaborate with the county on those events. Whereas right now, we don't have that opportunity. So this just allows the city to have a say in events that are taking place within our city limits.
That's
With-
one interpretation.
With that, I think let's just have a roll call, please, and see if there's support to have this on the agenda for the future or not.
Counselor Yazzie,
No,
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Youssef,
Yes.
Counselor Bosman's,
No,
Mayor Pro Tem Buell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mayor, if I can interrupt just for 1 minute. There are some people in the audience that I spoke to that may not have been aware were supposed to sign up to speak under public comment, and I didn't hear you give a call to the room for additional public comment. I might have missed it, but
I didn't. I had our public comment paper, so I didn't do that.
it's your discretion as the chair. But if there's people in the audience that feel like they did not get the opportunity to speak, I would recommend that you recognize them.
Okay. We will go back to public hearing then, or going back to public comment item number 13.
Have them sign up.
But before that, I think since we have a motion on the table, that one carried. So sorry. Okay. So 15's done, 14's done. Now we're going to go back to 13 and have public comment. Are there any other individuals who'd like to speak tonight? Okay. Would like to hear from you. Just one? Sounds like there's 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. A lot. Have at it. Go ahead. We're here to listen. I'm just gonna, yeah. And if you could speak your name, and whether you're a resident of the city or not, and what topic you'll be talking to this evening. If you address your comments to council, and just be aware that we won't respond from the dais.
Members of the council, Mayor Youssef, my name is Lee Dean, and I am a resident of Durango. I am here as a resident and concerned citizen of the United States, and also with membership in the Durango Palestine Solidarity Coalition. And we have submitted the proposed resolution to all council members. And we are here to ask for a motion and a second and a vote for this resolution to be placed on the agenda for a future date. And I'm aware of the comments about it, this proposed resolution not being related to our Durango residents. However, we have this many people here with words that it is personal to them, and it is personal to all of the residents of Durango as well. Do I have permission to distribute a copy of the physical resolution? Okay. Can I hand them to you? So as a note, while you're passing that out, we have a petition that has 196 signatures currently. And as a previous member has stated, 72 cities around the United States, including Taos and many current cities within Colorado that are working towards a similar resolution are in development. So 72 have passed, and there are many within Colorado being proposed to city councils. So my other colleagues and friends are going to speak about how this is related to us, specifically how it is financially related to us, how many of our tax dollars are being spent in the support of Israel that could be used locally, for example, to help housing, as we've seen today. It's also an issue for our local Jewish people, Muslim people, as well as our indigenous tribes. It is a political issue for us, as the U.S. is complicit in the reason that a permanent ceasefire has not yet been called. And also it is pertinent to us as military manufacturing occurs within Colorado. So these are all the types of comments that
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you for speaking. Appreciate it. All right, may we have the next person, please? Ian will get you at the end, I think. Thank you.
Yes. My name is Keaton. I am a resident of Durango. I am here tonight also as a member of the Durango Palestine Solidarity Coalition. Oh, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. I'm here also to speak to getting a city council member to make a motion to pass the proposed Gaza ceasefire resolution.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm here tonight also as a member of the Durango Palestine Solidarity Coalition. We are calling on city council members to make a motion. Just said that, I'm sorry. Okay. It's important to state first that our coalition stands against all forms of anti-Semitic, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim, and xenophobic speech and violence. Therefore, any conflation of the settler colonial state of Israel or the ideology of Zionism with the Jewish people is completely unacceptable. In fact, it was a close Jewish friend of mine who made me aware of the Palestinian struggle in the first place, allowing me to see the current genocide unfolding before us for what it is: Israel's weaponization of Hamas violence as an opportunity to ethnically cleanse Palestinians from Gaza. Now, over 22,000 Gazans have been killed in Israel's indiscriminate bombing campaign. Nearly all of these people were civilians, and over 11,000 of them were children. Yet when we raise this issue locally, people tell us we're sowing division. People say we're picking sides and that we should focus on our own local problems. I'm here to state clearly that this is our problem. The basic fact that we are US taxpayers makes us complicit in this genocide. For example, the Biden administration has twice bypassed Congress to send hundreds of millions of dollars worth of weapons to Israel. Our complicity extends specifically to Colorado as well. In Fort Collins, an aerospace engineering company called Woodward manufactures many of the bombs dropped on Gaza. And since 1996, Colorado companies have received $223 million in foreign military financing to provide material for the Israeli Defense Forces. These are only two examples of many. My tax dollars have murdered innocent Gazans. Our tax dollars are killing children. Our elected representatives want to be sure that we can't take meaningful steps against this complicity. Faced with this bleak reality, where else but local government are we supposed to start? Where else does anyone expect us to begin to shift the cultural tide toward justice on a national level? It's not appropriate. If it's not appropriate for us to discuss this here now during an act of genocide, then when will it ever be appropriate? Speaking for myself, I've seen that I can't trust our leaders on a national level to take any meaningful stance against this unrelenting violence. They, in fact, continue to enable it. Please make a motion to add the proposed ceasefire resolution to the city council agenda. Join the growing number of cities across the nation who have refused to remain silent. Many of us in this country, unfortunately, have the privilege to remain comfortable, the privilege to go on as usual as Israel's violence rages on. But given our complicity, it is our responsibility to use that privilege to cry out for Palestine. We must tell the world that we do not stand for the violence being committed in our names. I understand that a small city resolution cannot change international politics, but maybe it can be one small push for something better. To quote Grace Paley, the only recognizable feature of hope is action. Personally, I hope to live in a world where I don't have to convince my community that taking a stance against genocide is worth our time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we have the next person who'd like to speak, please?
Hello, Council. My name is Whitney, and I am a member of Durango. First of all, before I read what I have prepared, I just wanted to make it known that well, first I should say I am here as a member of the Durango Palestine Solidarity Coalition, and I am here to ask council to make a motion to put this ceasefire resolution on a future agenda. I want to make it known that we care about local issues. And in fact, you know, many of the issues that have been brought up tonight, including affordable housing and relationships of this city and its citizens to the native population, is part of the reason why I care about and relate to this issue. Oh, okay. So others will speak about the humanitarian and ethical need for cities nationwide to come together in solidarity with adoptions of ceasefire resolutions. The ethical arguments are extensive and stand on their own. We shouldn't need any more reason to consider a resolution beyond the fact that we are people of good conscience who try to do anything and everything within our influence, big or small, to say that harm will not be done in our name. If the ethical arguments do not appeal to your senses or your reason, I want to make it known that as public representatives who are spokespeople on our behalf, it is within the scope of your role to make a stance on this issue. The issue of this humanitarian crisis should be painfully personal to every U.S. citizen. My greatest fear when it comes to conversations about Palestinian suffering and the destabilization of the Middle East as a whole is that people will turn a blind eye and ask, why should I care? What does this have to do with me? Young people in the workforce tend to see it differently, and I desperately need you to know why. It's not because this group of people tend to be more progressive. The connections we have to death and displacement in Palestine are connections that can be made all across the political spectrum. The first connection that comes to my mind is how my generation is becoming rapidly housing insecure. It is rare to find affordable housing in the US, an issue that Durango is no stranger to. When we watch military spending increase year after year at an inflation rate that somehow our wages never keep up with, we resolve in our minds the acceptance that we will never own homes. The $857 billion in 2023 of our tax money could be spent on so many other things that stabilize our livelihoods and the health of this community. We worry about the justice. Oh, okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
please consider our resolution.
Thank you.
Greetings, members of City Council and Durango community. My name is Gina Janone. I am a Durango resident. I am also here as a member of the Durango Palestine Solidarity Coalition in support of a motion for a resolution for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. In light of the horrific and disturbing comments made at the January 16th meeting, I also want to start with unequivocal condemnation of anti-Semitism in all forms, as well as Islamophobic, anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and xenophobic rhetoric and violence that has unfortunately risen in the wake of this unspeakable violence and ethnic cleansing. I also grieve with both Palestinian and Israeli civilian families who have lost loved ones as a result of this decades-long occupation, aided and supported by the United States and other Western powers. I personally have visited the occupied West Bank 3 times. My views on Israel and Palestine were shaped by witnessing the occupation with my own eyes and listening to the lived experiences of Palestinians firsthand. The daily humiliation and harassment, restriction of movement, direct and systemic violence, dispossession, and dehumanization of Palestinians is impossible to ignore when you are there. In the West Bank, where Hamas does not hold any control, hundreds of Palestinians have been killed by Israeli settlers and security forces since October 7th and long before, making 2023 its deadliest year on record there, according to the UN. In Gaza, we are witnessing our taxes fund the largest massacre of children in recent history, with over 11,000 killed in just a few months. We are witnessing the restriction of water, food, electricity, medical supplies, and basic necessities to an increasingly starving population, the bombing of hospitals and schools and refugee camps, all with the help of our tax dollars and in our name. This is a question of basic human rights, and until now, our federal and state governments have made the decision for us as to whose human rights matter and whose do not. In the past 30 years, Colorado companies have received nearly $223 million in foreign military financing to provide material for the Israeli Defense Forces. In 2016, then Governor, now U.S. Senator John Hickenlooper, signed a law declaring our state's support for Israel and directing the State Public Employees Retirement Association to divest from any company refusing to do business with Israel, part of the nonviolent boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. The governor signed this law less than 2 years after yet another Israeli bombardment in Gaza that killed over 2,000 Palestinians, mostly civilians. This state hasn't avoided international affairs, and when we speak out against Israel's war crimes, we are told we are sowing division and wrongfully bringing global issues into the community. We, as Colorado and U.S. taxpayers, have a right to object to this complicity in ethnic cleansing and genocide. City councils nationwide, as my friends have said, have chosen to stand on the side of humanity, and the list continues to grow. Durango, which sits on the stolen and occupied traditional land of the Ute tribe, Jicarilla Apache, Arapaho, Comanche, the Dene Nations, and others, has the chance to add its voice in solidarity with the people of Palestine, who have experienced ethnic cleansing for close to a century. Please make a motion to place the proposed ceasefire resolution to the City Council agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael Fidel. I'm a citizen of Durango, resident of Durango. The Kafia didn't give it away. I'm going to talk about the proposal for a ceasefire resolution. My father was born in Haifa, Palestine, and his family left in 1948 when he was 12. So I'm Palestinian. My sister, who's in the audience, is Palestinian. Our children are Palestinian. The thing that people have talked about is, why does this matter to Durango? I was not preparing to make any remarks tonight, so I'm trying to cobble a few things together. The January 16th meeting, it was really evident about the vile anti-Semitism that still exists in this community, in the country, in the state, in the world. So, sorry, I'm at the age where I have to take my glasses off to read and put them back on to see people. We moved to Durango a year and a half ago to be closer to family, and because we thought Durango was a city with a really wonderful sense of community and a caring community. So anti-Semitism is being conflated with criticism of Israel and anti-Zionism. So sadly, so many Zionists don't understand this is going on in an attempt to stifle honest discussion, combined with the atrocity of what Israel's been doing. Is dangerous for Jews in Durango, in Colorado, in the United States, and the world, and the root cause of an increase in anti-Semitism. Because while most people who truly care about peace in this region understand the nuances between Judaism and Zionism, there's still many who conflate the two. This confused thinking by some people unfairly holds all Jews responsible for Israel's current atrocities against Palestinians. Ironically and sadly, the increased anti-Semitism is exactly what happens when Zionists conflate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. Therefore, two of the things that we can do that are important to fight anti-Semitism in Durango and Colorado, in the country and the world, is stop this, support a ceasefire, and stop conflating criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. This will make the world a safer place, and stop allowing Zionists to weaponize the term anti-Semitism, conflating it with criticism of Israel and Israeli policies, and allow open and honest debate of Israel's actions. I'm going to finish with one last comment that from Elie Wiesel that says, we must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never helps the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Council, good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Zachary Lawrence. I am a citizen of Durango. I've lived here since 2001, and I am also very much in favor of a resolution going forward in solidarity with Palestine and the ceasefire. I had the opportunity of going to Israel many times growing up. My great-grandmother is a sole survivor of her family from the Holocaust. We're Ashkenazi, technically. But in the recent years, my daughter has been urging me to get more into, exploring the heritage and the faith. And so we've been going to, we were members of Har Shalom, and, we celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah. But she has expressed to me, recently that she's worried about going to the synagogue because we are both very sympathetic to the Palestinian cause and the ongoing oppression. There's a lot of history involved in what's going on. And I know that the council perhaps isn't necessarily involved in global issues, but this is very much a humanitarian issue and a human issue. And I believe that it does affect our mental state. There's a lot of us here that are fighting this battle on social media, and we're not represented fairly, I think, by a lot of, but the base, Biden's base is for a ceasefire, almost a majority, at least over a majority. And a few of the things that I want to touch on, that there are laws in place that actually prevent or were designed to prohibit America from being complicit in humanitarian crimes and war crimes. The Leahy Law, established in 1997, was designed specifically to reduce any complicity in by not giving foreign aid to countries that are committing humanitarian or abusing humanitarian rights. So, you know, America is kind of the godfather of the world and doesn't necessarily always answer to everybody, but this law is clearly being violated. The whole rest of the world knows that this is a humanitarian crisis, and it's going to be ongoing, and it's going to be the damage in Gaza. Some say that it could not be until 2092 that the cities will be rebuilt and put back together. So I think that the symbolic resolution would say a lot. And I've been here since 2001. I've loved this community forever. I've spent 7 years at Carver's and then many years at the, ski resorts, and between beer and skiing, I think I've met half the population, if not more. And I left for a little while and I had to come back because this place has my heart. And and my daughter, was born here. So thankfully, the lineage will continue. But I didn't prepare anything. I'm just rambling. But it is very important to me that this is recognized and not just seen as a global issue, because it affects all of us. And thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Dean, did you want to speak now? Dean's a former mayor. He doesn't even ask. He just hands things out. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Mayor and Mark, for accommodating those of us that didn't either got too late to sign up or didn't know we were supposed to sign up. But and my topic is certainly not of the international importance that these folks just spoke to, but I'm here tonight to just on an interesting mission to follow up on a conversation I've been having with staff. I should back up and say I'm Dean Brookie. I live at 970 East 4th Avenue, and I'm a citizen. So following up on what you have in this packet is a couple items, Colorado state statutes with regard to marijuana regulation and legalization. Reminds me of a few years ago when we're on council looking out over a room full of Boy Scouts and folks that were concerned about fertilizing and the parks and natural parks. Then it was a full house, and Rasta Stevie, and he walked in, kind of wandered in. And so there we were talking about marijuana regulations in the city of Durango with the Boy Scouts on their field trip for civic merit badges. But anyway, I'm here to talk to you about what you have in front of you is the 2 state statutes regarding changes that the state has made with marijuana regulations in the past 2 years. On that evening when council was discussing how we incorporate the new legalized marijuana statutes in the city of Durango, we wanted, quite honestly, we didn't know that much about it. It was a new, interesting adventure. And so we wanted to have parity with whatever the state was doing. We felt was appropriate probably to start this experiment in the city of Durango. So what you have is a conversation I've been having with staff. You have itemized changes of the statutes for the state of Colorado. And so my purpose is to pique interest in council, to direct staff to look at these, staff and council to look at these changes, incorporate them into the LUDC if appropriate, if you feel it's appropriate and timing is ready. The crux of it is how we measure, one of the crux of it is how we measure distances between schools and retail marijuana facilities. In short, the state has now adopted a pedestrian route, direct route of pedestrian measurement as measured, as opposed to as the crow flies, which is what the city has enforced over the past few years successfully. But As we've seen, the proliferation of retail marijuana facilities has not been the trauma that we thought it might be at that time. In fact, at this point in time, we're seeing pot shops actually, we're losing a few of them in the city of Durango, good or bad, whatever. I'm just trying to suggest that we should continue to have parity with the state of Colorado in relation to how we measure things, how we process things, and that would require some changes in the LUDC that are outlined in your packet. Thank you, and appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. All right, I know we have someone else who wants to speak virtually, but do we have anybody else in the audience? All right, then let's go ahead and hear from Adar Higgs.
Hi, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. If you can state your name and whether you're a resident of the city and what item you will be speaking to tonight.
My name is Adar Higgs. I am a resident of Mancos and I lived in Durango for about 8 years. I'm also speaking on behalf of the proposed resolution for the Durango Palestine Solidarity Coalition. I'll just briefly add a little bit about what these members have so eloquently spoken to. The issue that this is a world events and not a local issue. As I said, I lived in Durango for about 8 years. I still work up at Fort Lewis College and am involved in a lot of Durango community things, work things. And I also am Ashkenazi Jewish. So I have attended the Har Shalom synagogue and I've organized Jewish events in the Durango community. Something that hasn't been mentioned tonight that the council may or may not be aware of is that there have been weekly vigils organized by the Durango Palestine Solidarity Coalition to represent the urgent and important issue of the deaths of Palestinians that have been taking place in the time since October. And there has been a growing presence at these vigils of counter-protesters. So while this can be concerning in any protest under any circumstances, there's something particularly upsetting and troubling about, as a Jewish person, knowing that there's a violent and threatening presence of individuals who are not Jewish, and yet they are, as has been mentioned, weaponizing the language of anti-Semitism and throwing back hateful language at us on the streets while we're engaging in peaceful protest. So I would encourage the council, if there's any way that you can do so, because those of us who have advocated here tonight are doing so in the way that is available to us through peaceful means, through the civic government, and we are speaking up and using our voices as members of this community to uphold our voices and our perspective by speaking as a council on behalf of what we're asking, rather than letting the voices of these individuals on the street continue to use threatening, hurtful, violent language to try to set the tone of how this conversation goes in our community, and listen to the voices of the ones who are personally connected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I just want to thank the community for your civil and humane dialogue tonight after January 16th. We very much appreciate it. So thank you for that. And with that, we'll move on to other new business. Moving on to 15.1, appointments of Community Development Commission members, Councilor Yazzie and Councilor Woodruff.
Sorry, get it in my packet here. Yeah, Councilor Yazzie and I had the opportunity, along again with Director Scott Shine to interview 19 applicants for the Community Development Commission, newly founded Community Development Commission. And yeah, again, it was really awesome to see so much great, robust public input for that that limited amount of seats. And so yeah, we had 5-6 hours of interviews over the course of 2 days. And yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing how this council goes up. It's going to be quasi judicial in that, you know, it's going to be, you know, policy recommendations, you know, looking at the LUDC, the Land Use Development Code, to see what will work potentially and make recommendations to council for our approval. And then other will be, you know, any sort of small developments, minor replats, that sort of thing will get passed through this commission. So yeah, we're really excited for the 7 that were appointed to this. Then Councilor Yazzie, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, second.
So I would like to make a motion to, is it appropriate to do? Okay. Hey, Mark, is it appropriate to make a motion to approve the appointment of the Community Development Commission members? Okay, so I would like to make a motion to approve the appointments of the Community Development Commission that Councilor Yazzie and I and Scott Shine had a chance to interview on January 30th and 31st.
I'll second.
Council discussion. Roll call, please.
Mayor Youssef,
Yes.
Counselor Yazzie,
Yes.
Counselor Whitmer,
Yes.
Mayor Buell,
Yes.
Counselor Thompson.
Abstain.
Do we have any other new business from council? Go ahead, Councilor Yazzie.
Yes, I would like to have this proposal from Dean Brookie forwarded to the community development so they can take a look at it, because I think staying in with the state regulations is a good idea.
Do I have a second? I'll second that. The proposal, the request is to have community development take a look at it. I would second that. Council discussion? Can we have a roll call, please?
Can I just have some?
Is that a
clarification?
motion?
I'm not clear on what the motion is
Yeah, the
either.
Motion.
I don't even really know if it was a motion. I think she's just asking it to go, sorry. I think she's
Let
just
him
asking
work.
for, I'm just seeing if
Let
there's
him
council
review it.
support to send it to staff to review.
To direct the staff to review.
So let me, just to make sure, it's one of these parts I always want to have clarity.
Yeah.
And make sure I have an understanding of, I think what you're asking would be to direct myself to direct the city manager to have this community development staff review the information that former Mayor Brookie presented at citizen comments, and then come back to the council and provide a presentation on our review.
Okay, so what I'm asking is that the staff okay that we let community development under your preview to review it, and then we'll see if this makes sense to include in our legislative ordinances here with the city of Durango.
Gotcha. So I think we're on the right path, but I want to make sure that the comeback that the feedback that would come back would be that we'd have a presentation to council and say, here's what would change. Here's what this all entails. Council, do you want us to move forward with an ordinance change? Or are you asking us to just go ahead and move forward with the ordinance change?
I think I'd like it reviewed.
Okay. And then have a presentation to council on what would need to be changed to do what he proposed.
To ask what the recommendation is.
Okay, we could provide a recommendation. If that's what the council votes.
I would support that. Is there support from council? That's what I was trying to get a roll call for. Can I go for a roll call now on that? Okay, thank you. May we have a roll call, please, Dana?
Counselor Whitmer,
Yes.
Mayor Buell,
Yes.
Counselor Yazzie,
Yes.
Mayor Youssef,
Yes.
Counselor Thompson.
Yes.
Other new business from council? All right, seeing none, do we have any requests for excused absences? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned.